begin, first and foremost, in as intentional and genuine a way as we can all summon, an acknowledgement of the land on which we gather. Toronto is part of the dish with one spoon territory, named for a treaty between the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Mississaugas of the New Credit. This treaty bound them to share the territory and to protect the land of the dish, which represents what is now known as Southern Ontario. Since its creation, subsequent Indigenous nations and peoples, Europeans, and all newcomers have been incorporated into the treaty in the spirit of peace, friendship, and respect. We extend our gratitude to the past, present, and future elders and teachers who carry the knowledge of this land, and we are truly grateful for the opportunity to create, to live, learn, read, and write on this land together. Thank you. My name is Jill Deacon. Jillian always makes me feel like I'm in trouble. I am perhaps best known in this building as host of Here and Now on CBC Radio 1. I'm also the author of 3 books. It looks like it'll in print, so it says Jillian on the book titles. I also served as the board, as a member of the board of the Writers' Trust for 7 years. And I learned a lot in that time about the crucial support that Writers' Trust provides to writers who live on this land, now called Canada. Tonight is an opportunity to celebrate Canadian writers and Canadian writing, and I feel like part of that means that we should all take a moment to think about what writers have done for us lately. I know that everyone in this room and watching on the live stream by virtue of being here appreciates and values a good book. Always have, always will. But in the exquisitely challenging times from which we now tentatively and hopefully emerge, think about what writers did for us. Scientists helped us find the light switch and the exit from the terrifying pandemic experience, and bless them, everyone. But writers kept us company in the dark. However isolated we all were through lockdowns and restrictions, we were less so with a book in our hands. The writers in this room, in this country, and everywhere else perform their miracles alone in their quiet spaces so that we can feel less alone in ours. So, a very deeply felt thank you to the storytellers, the conjurers, the wanderers, and the investigators honored here tonight. Your work is invaluable, and we know that now after COVID, maybe more than ever. And the work of the Writers' Trust, tireless and targeted support that keeps writers going, is invaluable too. These prizes are great, and they are game-changing, but there is also year-round effort by the Writers' Trust that makes those Canadian authors in their quiet spaces feel a little less alone themselves. Over the course of this evening, we are going to be highlighting the individual, foundation, and corporate benefactors that make tonight's various prizes possible, and I would like to take a moment to acknowledge a few additional sponsors and partners that help to support the Writers' Trust. They are, government partner is the Department of Canadian Heritage, the media partner, the Globe and Mail, Indigo Books and Music, Quill and Choir, and Steam Whistle Brewing are also partners. So big thank you to them for the role that they play in making tonight happen. And a thank you, our guests, for being here, for joining in a celebration of Canadian literary experience. It just wouldn't be the same if you weren't here. So, shall we begin? We're going to start with a prize that's actually new to this ceremony, and it's a prize that is unique in the landscape of Canadian literary prizes, and inclusive, intersectional, groundbreaking since its inception. To present tonight's first prize, the Dayne Ogilvie Prize for LGBTQ2S+ writers, please welcome prize founder and principal donor, Robin Pacific. Good evening. It's lovely to be here and to be part of this. Before I begin my remarks, I'd just like to acknowledge two people in the audience. One is Gary Aikenhead, Dayne's widow, and the other is Don Orbeck, who was the executive director of the Writers' Trust, when I rolled into his office and said, why don't we start a prize for, in honor of my friend? And Don took it on, and we would not be here doing this tonight had it not been for his early efforts. In 2007, this prize was established to honor my late friend, Dayne Ogilvie, a respected editor, writer, literary manager, and passionate lover of all the arts. Over its 15-year history, the Dayne Ogilvie Prize has rewarded 40 emerging writers who have gone on to publish dozens of books, win awards nationally and internationally, and who represent the creativity, community, and talent of Canada's LGBTQ2S+ writers. Tonight, for the first time in its history, this prize takes center stage at the Writers' Trust Awards. I think this is the rightful place for the Dayne Ogilvie, and I believe that now, more than ever, Dayne would be pleased and proud to see his name attached to the prize. Dayne was the second oldest of 8 children in a working-class family in Moncton, New Brunswick. His older brother, David, died in prison. His youngest brother, Danny, a gifted photographer, died of AIDS. Dayne never recovered from Danny's death, along with the death to AIDS of so many friends and lovers. He died at 56 of a heart attack, but I've always believed that he died of a broken heart. Dayne was an out-loud and out-proud gay man. He believed that being gay is a spiritual calling. He was outrageously funny, and sex was never far from the laughter. I once asked him during a very serious conversation if he believed in God. He threw up his arms, cackled, and said loudly in a crowded restaurant, "Praise the Lord and pass the white jelly." He was full of rage and he was full of love. I will always miss him, and it is such a comfort and honor for me that his name lives on in the Dayne Ogilvie Prize. Dayne, your queen for a day. This year's jury was composed of writers Billy Ray Belcourt, Samra Habib, and Zoe Lee Peterson. Together they chose 3 debut books published since January 2020 by LGBTQ2S+ authors. I thank them for their service on the jury and the incredibly difficult task they faced in selecting this year's finalists and winner. The jury used such words as sacred, sensuous, and endlessly innovative to describe this year's finalists. After this, I suggest you purchase their books to find out which is which. I am pleased now to present to you the shortlist for the 2022 Dayne Ogilvie Prize. Acha Bacha by Bilal Beg, published by Playwrights Canada Press. Butter, Honey, Pig, Bread by Francesca Ekwuyazi, published by Arsenal Pub Press. And White Men Walking by Matthew James Weigel, published by Coach House Books. Congratulations again to all of these 3 very exceptional writers. And the winner, up here, of the 2022 Dayne Ogilvie Prize for LGBTQ2S+ emerging writers, including a prize of $10,000, is Francesca Ekwuyazi.
gratitude. I'm really grateful to my friend Hannah for being here, to the Writers' Trust, to Miss Pacific, to the jurors, to Arsenal Pulp, Price, everyone there, to Shira Rose. I'm just really grateful. So this is literally my dream, is to write and be paid for it and have people be interested. So.
The next set of awards are unique as well. Writers' Trust is the only prize-giving organization in Canada that rewards the art of a writer's career by recognizing an outstanding contribution over years and decades. These awards deliver an important message. We see you, we believe in you, please keep writing. The winners of these awards are in the uniquely comfortable place of knowing that they've already won. To present tonight's first career award, the Matt Cohen Award, in celebration of a writing life, please welcome book lover and the prize's generous sponsor, Lorraine Gray.
For more than 2 decades, the Matt Cohen Award has been presented to a Canadian writer who has lived the writing life, that is, made their living completely by writing. The award is given for literary excellence and arrives with $25,000. The prize is for the writing. The money is so that the writer can continue to do what they have done so well for so long. This award is presented in memory of author Matt Cohen. A passionate proponent of Canadian literature, Matt Cohen published more than 30 books, was a founding member of the Writers' Union of Canada, a leading advocate in creating this country's public lending right program, and an internationally celebrated writer who helped put Canada on the world literary map. Upon his death in 1999, Writers' Trust began to present, in Matt's name, an annual award to a writer who has made a significant and lasting contribution to Canadian literature. Personally, I am honored to support this award and the writers it recognizes. This year's selection committee was comprised of Patsy Aldana, Michelle Good, Wayne Grady, and Olive Sr. I would like to offer my thanks to Patsy, Michelle, Wayne, and Olive for their work to ensure that deserving writers receive this vital support and encouragement. Now it is my pleasure to introduce the winner of this year's award. Born in the Peace River country of northern Alberta, this year's winner is the author of more than 20 books that define and extol the prairie experience. Her subjects range from individual studies of crows, ravens, grizzly bears, and bees, to the disconnecting impact of cultural migration. Her career has been lauded for her seminal works of nonfiction and for her children's writing, and she was described by the Globe and Mail as an essential Canadian voice. I am honored to welcome to the stage, all the way from southern Saskatchewan, the winner of the 2022 Matt Cohen Award, Candace Savage.
I've known this was coming, this moment was coming for a couple of weeks now, but as you can see, I'm still overwhelmed. This blessing, the Matt Cohen Award for Writing Life, it's hard for me to believe that it's been bestowed on me. I'm amazed and thrilled and deeply grateful to this lovely human being, Lorraine Gray, for sponsoring this award, I'm grateful to the jury. I'm grateful to the Writers' Trust, and I'm so glad that you're all here to share this celebration. I met Matt Cohen only once. It would have been about 30 years ago. I was in my early 40s, I guess, a relatively young widow with an 11-year-old, and I was also very scared. A lump was growing in my body where no lump was supposed to be, and the doctors couldn't figure out what was happening. And it was in the midst of this crisis that I fell into conversation with Matt and ended up telling him my troubles. He listened, we said goodbye, and I thought that would be the end of that. I never imagined anything more would come of it. But a short time later, out of the blue, I received a letter from the Writers' Trust and a handsome check drawn on the Woodcock Fund. Matt had not only listened, but he'd put things in motion to send help when it was needed. In the end, I was fine, and life went on, but I will never forget that quiet, sustaining act of kindness. And so now, here are Matt Cohen and the Writers' Trust with another breathtaking surprise. What makes this award especially delicious is that it seems to acknowledge aspects of my personality that have often been mistaken for faults. For instance, this award is a rebuke to that grade 2 teacher in Dawson Creek, British Columbia, circa 1957, who complained that Candy tends to talk too much. Of course Candy talked in class. She had something to say. And the award waggles a finger at the volunteer librarian in Beaver Lodge, Alberta, a few years later, who watched a preteen come in with a teetering pile of summer reading and exploded with "Well," the librarian said, "you certainly haven't been helping your mother very much." Happily, my mother also had her nose in the book, but her formative role in my writing life is a story that will wait for another day. Best of all, this award offers a validation for my appallingly bad attitude. I was barely into my 20s when I decided that regular employment wasn't really a good fit. As far as I was concerned, having a job meant going somewhere I didn't want to go, to do things I didn't want to do, with people I didn't want to be. Which was, right? I mean, what could I have been thinking? And yet, with the steadfast support of people who apparently saw something in me that I didn't see in myself, and Rob Sanders, yes, I am talking about you, through the transition from manual typewriters to electrics, and from cassette tapes to floppies to memory sticks and the cloud, book by book and year by year, this miraculous writing life has continued. Let's try that again in the present tense. This miraculous writing life continues. I am deeply grateful for this award and for so much more. Thank you.
To present tonight's second career award, the Vicky Metcalf Award for Literature for Young People. Please welcome children's book author, 2009 winner of this prize, and juror for this year's prize, Martha Jocelyn.
50 years ago, Vicky Metcalf created a prize to celebrate the writing of literature for Canadian children, one that honored writers who took creative risk and demonstrated sustained excellence throughout their careers. In founding the award, Vicky Metcalf helped to establish a community of writers that is strong, vibrant, and imaginative. At their best, authors of books for children do nothing less than instill a love of stories in generations of devoted lifelong readers. It is fitting that we are making this presentation on I Read Canadian Day, on which nearly 3,000 schools, roughly 100,000 children, participated across the country today. On behalf of the Writers' Trust, I am grateful to the Metcalf Foundation for making possible this $25,000 award. It is especially meaningful that an award celebrating the confluence of young people, writers, and creativity is included among Writers' Trust prizes, reminding us, if we need it, that remarkable artistry is required to write well, whether for an audience of young children, teenagers, or adults. I was lucky to serve on the jury this year alongside Hadley Dyer and Mahtab Narsaman, two of the most careful and thoughtful readers with whom I have ever had the pleasure to work. And now to the recipient of this year's award. Our citation reads, "Bottomless wit, an inimitable style, and a strong lacing of social commentary are just some of the elements that impressed the jury about the extraordinary body of work of this year's winner. Informative and fact-based, yet often delightfully absurd, her books cover a vast spectrum of topics, from gender identity and stereotypes to kids who adopt monsters, a mushroom fan club, and many disgusting critters. The author and illustrator of well over 50 books, she brilliantly introduces difficult subjects in an accessible and engaging manner, with subversive humor that thrills readers of every age. To crack open a book by this year's Vicky Metcalf Award winner is to embark on an unpredictable and memorable journey with plenty of laughs along the way. The winner of the 2022 Vicky Metcalf Award for Literature for Young People and $25,000 is Elise Gravel.
I don't know why, but I printed my speech on a tiny little piece of paper that I can't read, so forgive me if this gets awkward. When I was a kid, my dad was a college economics teacher, and at some point during my youth, he wrote a novel, and it got published. And then a few years after that, he wrote a novel for kids, and it also got published. That was 40 years ago. And as of today, he's written more than 100 books for kids, mostly for kids, and he's still having fun doing it. His name is François Gravel. Bonjour, Papa. What I learned from watching my dad is that books don't appear by magic. They don't hatch from eggs. They're not produced by machines or created by gods. They are written by normal people, human beings. And writing a book is something that people can do, just like baking cakes or skateboarding. As a young adult, I didn't have any idea what I wanted to do, and it was not baking cakes or skateboarding. But I tried a bunch of different things. I worked in hospitals, I worked in bookstores, and I volunteered with kids a lot. And I discovered that I really like hanging out with kids. I find them funny, and we share the same very immature sense of humor. So around 20, I went to Prince Edward Island to tutor kids in a French immersion elementary school. And my job was to plan activities and fun things to do with kids just so they would practice French in a fun environment. And I loved that. And my favorite part was drawing with kids and just like mostly everything that was around fart jokes. So when I came back to Montreal, I decided to continue this fling I had with drawing that I hadn't really explored earlier in my life. And I started learning graphic design. I went to graphic design school, and we had illustration classes, which I really liked. And so I thought I might give it a try as a career. But when I came out of school, I didn't have any clients because I was a nobody and nobody knew me and I didn't have a style. So I decided to make up clients and to illustrate ads for them. So I invented clients and products that don't exist and are very silly and that nobody would want to buy. Like stuff like boxing gloves that are furry for boxers with delicate skin, or a leash for your goldfish, or what else? I think I had a squirt gun lighter for people who want to quit smoking. It's a really good invention. And I illustrated ads for those products, and I had lots of fun. And when I had 20 or so ads like that, I put them all on the floor in my bedroom and looked at them, and I thought, like, this is funny. I think kids would find it funny too. And so I copied those images and sent them to publishers everywhere. And after the usual hundreds of rejections, finally someone said yes, and a publisher in Quebec published those books, those illustrations as a book, and by magic, my illustrations became a picture book for kids. And that was great. It was a really great feeling. And, well, it didn't sell, and, but I still had fun writing it, and so I decided to keep writing more books like that, and so I wrote and illustrated more books, and then they still didn't sell, and I had many years of going to book fairs and sitting alone at my table, looking at people like that with a big smile, and trying to appear non-threatening so they would come and look at my book. But after a few years, at book fairs, at some point I started seeing a few people at my table coming to tell me that they liked my book, and then more kids, and then at some point I started selling books, and then some publishers from the United States started reaching out to me to write books there and in France, and in the end my career started to be doing very well, and now it's going well for me. I've written more than 60 books for kids. And I think, I'm sorry, I don't keep count. So, but deep down, like I think 99% of my colleagues who write for children, I have the imposter syndrome, and I keep questioning the validity of my work. Like, this can't be a real job, right? Like, writing books for kids, especially if they're full of fart jokes like mine, it can't be serious, it can't be a real work, it can't be important. So that's why I'm extremely grateful for awards like this one. I thank the Metcalf Foundation for reminding us that writing for kids has value, and that it's a real job, and that yes, we are real writers too. Thank you for making me realize that having fun doing something doesn't mean that that something is not important. Thank you.
To present tonight's third career award, the Writers Trust Engel Findley Award, please welcome Writers Trust board member Irene Omar.
The career awards given by the Writers Trust are unique in their mission to celebrate voices that represent the depth and diversity of Canadian talent, book after book after book. These are rewards for literary excellence, but also for stamina, spirit, and artistic growth in a rewarding but exacting profession. It is my honor to present the Writers' Trust Engel Findley Award, which recognizes a writer of fiction in mid-career. While this award comes with a prize of $25,000, it is equally important in its endorsement of this author's craft and courage. As the beneficiaries of the Timothy Findley estate, Writers' Trust is especially pleased to be able to reward an author who, like both Tiff Findley and Marion Engel, dedicated their careers to the very hard, very essential business of telling our stories. May receiving this acclaim and knowing it is named for two such important authors from our past long be a source of encouragement to tonight's winner. Before I reveal the winner, I would like to express gratitude to the jurors, authors Carol Bruneau and Sean Michaels. Together, they read the best that contemporary Canadian literature has to offer. On behalf of Writers' Trust, I thank them for the thoroughness and thoughtfulness they brought to their reading and their decision. Here's what the jury said about this year's winner. For 3 decades, she has been writing some of this country's most original and incandescent fiction. With a deep understanding and a fearless devotion, she worries at the knot of identity and transformation, revealing in an ever-expanding way the costs of pursuing one's dreams. Her novels and stories transport us. Set variously against the lushness of the tropics and the stark relief of Canadian winters, they peel back the layers of emotion experienced by those who resist cultural, racial, and sexual hegemony. People whose identities and upbringings are at perilous odds with their desires. Her books are alive, audacious, and full of craft. It's a body of work that inspires us with all its care and unself-conscious trajectory. My fellow book lovers, please join us in celebrating the winner of the 2022 Engel Findley Award, Shani Mutu.
Hi, it's 3 weeks ago, Charlie Foran let me know that this happened, but I hadn't heard these words before, and it's a bit overwhelming. Thank you very, very much. Yeah, to say that I'm deeply honored and truly grateful to the Writers' Trust and to judges Sean Michaels and Carol Bruneau for this particular award is an understatement. There is that, and forgive me for bringing it up again, but there is that truish cliche, as most of us here know well, that says that writing is a solitary profession. Many of us do, in fact, sequester ourselves in our caves with our writing materials and burn our candles daily to a stump. And for years we work away like this in a kind of self-imposed wilderness. But it really is a self-serving cliche of the solitary hero. And actually, I came to this strange practice of writing 30 years ago out of a full visual art and video making career. And it was in video production that I learned the value of working with others. You know, to this day, I still don't know how to use a film or video camera, nor sound equipment, nor how to edit shot material, but I've made numerous art videos that continue to be widely screened. You know, I would write the scripts and surround myself by people who with specialized skills, who could also, they knew how to hear me, and I was very fortunate to be able to find people who could actually hear me, help me make the work as I imagined it, and finally, to make that work shine. For all intents and purposes, it's been the same with this writing. Because I hadn't planned to be a writer, when I was invited by Barbara Kuhn and Della McCreary of Prascan Publishers 30 years ago to write something for their press, that first book being a collection of short stories called Out on Main Street, I didn't exactly know how to do so, other than what I'd learned in high school, from reading, and from my own constant private scribblings. And so I drew on my experiences in visual arts and video making. And from that first book, I was taught, and I feel to the very last, my last poetry book, that I am constantly being taught how to write by some of the most wonderful editors I've had the good fortune to work with. I love the cave part, those first solitary years, but it is exiting the cave and entering into the editing process, the discussions, the agreements and disagreements, the back and forth that I so very much look forward to. The notes that make me think, oh, of course, I see. How did she see that? And I want to say a huge thank you tonight. I've always wanted to do this publicly, and I get to do it tonight, and so I will. I want to say thank you to these editors whose work on past books always comes to bear on the cave writing part of the present one. They're an interesting kind of creature, editors, how they hide themselves in the background even as they peep out to cheer us on. Left to me, I would put my editor's name on the cover of my books. I've said this from the start, and I mean it. And so I want, therefore, to name them today. The first book, edited by Ramabai Espinay. Sirius Blooms at Night by Jennifer Glossop. Poetry and Novels by Lynn Henry. One by Elizabeth Schmidt of Grove Atlantic in the US. One by Meg Story, and the last, Cane Fire, poetry by Sandra Ridley. And I want to take the opportunity as well to say thank you to friends who've supported me and this long writing, in particular Catherine Bush, the filmmaker Richard Fung, the artist Marlene McCallum, the writer Sheila Mathers, and to the academics here and abroad who teach and write about my work. And among them I want to mention Linda Mora, Dr. Linda Mora of Bishop's University, and Dr. Tiago Morano of the University of Sao Paulo. And a huge thank you to my publishers of the past, and in the present, Jay and Hazel Miller of Book Hug, and the person who looks out for not just a single book, but for my career, Samantha Haywood. I want to say thank you to my family in Trinidad. You know, when I worked, my father was not, he's a doctor and a politician. He was not interested in me becoming a writer at all, because he was also afraid writers tell stories about the family. And I remember he was encouraged to read my first novel because it was doing well in other places. People were saying, you need to read her book. He read it and he called me up. We weren't on good terms. And he said to me, you know, we don't get along at all, but don't stop writing and don't censor yourself. Write anything you want. And I want to say thank you to the whole family. Finally, above all, it is my deep pleasure to have the opportunity to publicly thank my partner, Deborah Root, who is always the first to encourage me and to brilliantly engage with me in all of my creative projects. I will do my utmost to meet the Trust's inherent expectation that I, at 65 years old, have it in me to continue writing for at least another 30 years, at least another 10 months, and then my heartfelt thanks. Thank you.
To present tonight's fourth and final career award, the Latner Writers Trust Poetry Prize, please welcome last year's winner of the prize and juror for this year's prize, Wayman Chan.
Good evening, everybody. Poetry is a classic art form that in the hands of its most skilled practitioners speaks to the concerns of the contemporary while continuing the conversation with the past. Canada can boast about a number of exceptional poets living within its borders, and poetry has contributed deeply to this country's literary identity. I'm so proud to present this unique award, which annually celebrates one poet's contribution to this legacy through an entire body of work. As much as this $25,000 prize is in recognition of past work, it is equally symbolic of our anticipation for work to come. I would like to thank the Latner Family Foundation and Stephen Latner for both creating and funding this prize, and for their commitment to advancing and celebrating remarkable voices in Canadian poetry. In addition to myself being the 2021 Latner laureate, I served on the 2022 jury with amazing, caring jurors, and we all really wanted to find what was unique and powerful about the one that we would come to select. Fellow poets Luke Hathaway and January Rogers, we took great pride and delight in reading the work of Canada's finest poets, and thank you to both of them for their work. The oeuvre of this year's winner is a marvel of witness, expressing tough, unflinching truths. Aside from writing plays and radio scripts, his 14 books of poetry have shown a wide depth of vision and narrative power. The poet's work dissects, refigures, and takes to task settler colonialism. His quotidian reflections read like parables with startling economy, whether drawing from his own spiritual immortality of cultural initiation, or from his insightful perspective as a survivor of the streets. The author conjures lived-in worlds that resonate through action over sentiment. Rooted in oral storytelling that can calmly posit the reader in one context before switching it for another, his feather of belonging is a precarious carpet ride that these uncertain times float on. Such precision of intent is what lets the reader into his instantly relatable poems. Yet they are deep, deep dives into rhythms that build a history of survival in place, wise to all that's frail, strong, funny, and hopeful. Our jury could not recommend more highly a poet whose works deserve attention and discussion. The winner of the 2022 Latner Writers Trust Poetry Prize is Joseph Dandurand.
Like Automax. I guess not. I was going to bring it on the plane with me. Wow. Who am I? You guys don't know who I am, but now you do. You can Google me. I come from people called the Kwantlen. They call us Kwantlen First Nation. When I teach kids, I tell them our story is that 10,000 years ago we fell from the sky and we landed on the island where I live now. And we were told that we were allowed to take the fish from the river. And we've been fishing ever since. And that I look pretty good for being 10,058 years old. And I'm really, yeah. It's mostly face creams. Thank you. Oh, I have 2 biopics. Can you tell them? I have one for my children's books with no cigarette, and then the other one's for my I gotta work on them. Anyways, thank you so much. And January, and who's the other guy? Luke? Yeah, sure. Sweet. I should do research of this stuff. I'm always the bridesmaid when it comes to awards. I never win. Like I was up for the Griffin Award last year, and I'd already spent the money in my head. I had a beautiful boat, and I was living in Mexico, but I didn't win. But still, you're guaranteed $10,000, and for poets, yeah, and 25 G's is like, holy, you guys, are you sure? I always, when I win things, I always ask, the first thing I ask is, what did I win? Did I win a treaty for my people? And they're like, no, you can't. But one day, I'd like to be honored with a treaty. That's as political as I get. So. My mom was, I'm going to dedicate to my mom, who's a survivor. She was 5 years old and she was put on a train in Fort Langley and she was sent to Cooper Island Residential School. And she survived there and then she graduated from St. Mary's Residential School. And I'm just going to share a poem with you. Is that okay? Okay. It's called St. Mary's Number 4. 1955, down by the river, pup and muck fishing, quiet Sunday afternoon. All the chores have been finished. Catholics are in the field searching for lovely flowers to pick, to smell, to pick. Pup hooks the first one, her little arms holding on, holding, pulling. The fish snaps up into the air and looks around, his eyes staring right at her. Little Indian girl, little fisherman, little gift from above. Her hands grasp the pole, her eyes widen, her breath quickens. Flowers picked out of the earth snap at the stem. Noses sniff in the air, searching for the scent of God, all his creations, now devoured by humans. Flowers, fish, little Indians with crosses around their necks. Flowers, lovely flowers, fish. It jumps once more and snaps the line, going down to the bottom, down where the water is calm. It rests, swallows the fat worm, unaware of the creation, unaware. Muck gets a nibble, the hairs on his arm stand up. Catholics singing in the fields, songs about glory and salvation. Muck dances the worm, singing his song beneath his breath. He shuffles his feet, trying to remember his dance. Worm dances beneath the water. The salmon spots it, swims towards it. Hunger, dance, song, shuffling the bare brown feet. Fields of flowers, fields of salvation. River, water, fish takes the worm. Fields of song, worm becomes a hook. The salmon snaps his head to the left and then to the right. Hook goes deeper. Little Indian arms pulling, his song getting louder, his feet quickening to the beat of the drum inside his head. He pulls, he sings, he shuffles his feet like the old days, like the days back home. He pulls the fish out of the water. He takes a small club-like branch and snaps the fish on top of the head twice. Fish stops. Muck pulls the hook and what is left of the worm out of the fish's mouth, drops it back into the river. Fields of flowers, songs of glory and salvation. Two Indian Kids on the River's Edge, 1955, Worms on Hooks, Songs, Drum, Paint, Memories of Home, silently breathing songs of glory. Thank you so much.
So before we present our next award, the Atwood Gibson Writers Trust Fiction Prize, I want to give you a little glimpse into the nominated books and share a little bit about what moved the jurors to place each of these books onto the shortlist.
Madame sings us through the fictional life of its protagonist's grandmother. El-Khoury's writing is lyrical and soothing as she resurrects the hard early life of her own grandmother, who survived the decimation of Armenia in 1915. She approaches the reality of war with words that commemorate the life of her teta. El-Khoury writes, "What is worse than death is forgetting." Her work fulfills the curiosity we carry of our ancestors and is a reminder to all of us to honor their lives and, more importantly, to never forget them. What Cormac McCarthy did for cowboys and horses, Nicholas Herring does for fishermen and boats in his novel, Some Hellish. With a deep knowledge of the island and a passion for the language of work, Herring's voice is droll and philosophical, ribald and poetic. The age-old story of humans versus nature finds a fresh cadence as Herring trawls the seas for body and soul. There is a dark beauty within this story, and it will make the reader's heart sing. Kevin Lambert's fearless novel is a profane, funny, bleak, touching, playful, and outrageous satire of sexual politics, labor, and capitalism. In his static and cutting prose, it gleefully illuminates both the broad socio-political tensions of life in a Quebec company town and the intimate details of sex, lust, loneliness, and gay relationships in such a place. Like its central character, the book is brash, beautiful, quasi-mythic, and tragic. Most improbably, for all its daring and provocation, Querelle of Roberval is lyrically, even tenderly written. Darcy Tamayose writes from the other side. Each story in Ezra's Ghosts is unique and allows us to see life from beyond, exploring the aspects of grief from those who have moved on. Each character is placed inside our hearts, connecting us to the spirit of their loved one. She writes on the significance of the sacred, treading on the possibility of even more life and purpose in the afterlife. Tamayose is a gifted writer whose every sentence is written with care and precision. Sometimes a writer comes along whose stories are not only complex and full and exquisitely written, but whose vision and political voice feels necessary. In her first Palestinian, Said Tibi coaxes the reader in a certain direction and then flips the narrative so that now we are complicit and we see our own guilt in the great divide that exists between the privileged and the stranger. Tibi does this with subtle humor and a wry tone. He does not preach, yet his writing expresses a certain fervor that is essential. He is a vital voice.
To present the Atwood Gibson Writers Trust Fiction Prize, please welcome author and winner of this prize in 2020 for her book Ridge Runner, Jill Adamson.
Jill, another Jill. And thank you all for being here. It is my great honor to announce the winner of this year's prize. First, though, a word about the award itself. Though it has been around for a quarter century, it recently took on a new and dynamic form. In 2021, Writers' Trust renamed this esteemed fiction award for two of its co-founders, Margaret Atwood and Graham Gibson. A very deserving tribute to two pioneers in fostering a professional literary culture in Canada. Alongside its new name, the prize also found a generous new sponsor, the businessman and philanthropist Jim Balsillie. These are exciting developments for Writers' Trust and for authors of fiction. Just 2 years ago, I was fortunate enough to win the award, then called the Writers' Trust Fiction Prize. Winning this prize, even in a pandemic, meant a great deal to me. And in significant ways, it made me feel like perhaps I hadn't done the dumbest thing with my life. The Fiction Prize has integrity, and the Writers' Trust understands and cares about writers as writers. Being nominated at all was and is manifestly a good thing. It's a leg up and a vote of confidence from your peers. As Jill said, it's all about your awesomeness. The 2022 shortlist takes us to Anatolia, Prince Edward Island, a northern lumber town in Quebec, a quiet city on the prairie, Palestine, and a few places in between. We're taken into both the past and the afterlife, into conflict and grief, and most of all, into the complex minds of each book's flawed heroes. To quote Graham Gibson, we all live as if we're immortal. The characters in this year's shortlist face this notion. They are not gods, but humans like us, facing the finiteness of life and those with whom we live. Before I announce the winner of this year's $60,000 prize, I want to take a moment to recognize the jury. A profuse thanks to the three members for their discerning judgment and tireless dedication in selecting the 5 finalists from over 130 submitted titles. They are David Bergen, Norma Dunning, and Andrew Forbes. So, once again, those 5 finalists are Madame by Rima El-Khoury, translated by Phyllis Aronoff and Howard Scott, published by Mowensley House Publishers. Some Hellish by Nicholas Herring, published by Goose Lane Editions. Querelle of Roberval by Kevin Lambert, translated by Donald Winkler and published by Biblioasis. Ezra's Ghosts by Darcy Tamayose, published by New West Press. And Her First Palestinian by Saeed Tibi, published by House of Anansi Press. Congratulations again to all 5 authors. The winner of the 2022 Atwood Gibson Writers' Trust Fiction Prize is down here. I've never done this before. It's very exciting. All right. Nicholas Herring.
woke up this morning and I was already petrified and very nervous, so I didn't write a speech because I didn't think I was going to win. Oh my God. I just really have to thank everyone at Goose Lane. So if I forget any names, sorry. But I have to thank Suzanne and Alan and Kathy and Julie who did the cover, which was quite beautiful, I thought. And I have to thank Martin, who was the copy editor. He was kind of the garbage man for the whole thing. And I'd like to dedicate the award to Bethany Gibson, who was the editor. This is crazy. Thank you very much. I'm kind of confused.
Okay, we're about to present the final prize of the evening, but once again, I do want to invite you into the worlds of the books and share some words from the jurors of this year's Hilary Weston Writers' Trust Prize for Nonfiction.
In the Petroleum Papers, Jeff Dembicki shows us how the petroleum industry has known about the risks to the climate for more than 60 years. This is a book that connects the dots between the industry, politicians, lobbyists, fake grassroots groups, media, and corrupted think tanks. Basing his arguments on grounded research and using clear, accessible prose, Dembicki explains the players and the game. The stakes are the planet itself. In Nothing Will Be Different, Tara McGowan Ross unravels history and present in raw, unflinching prose that is at once funny, heartbreaking, and lyrical. A coming-of-age reflection that is searing in its honesty, energy, and depth, McGowan Ross treads difficult topics such as death, loss, addiction, and grief with wryness, wit, and depth. With an intense voice resolutely and unapologetically her own, McGowan Ross dares readers to come along on a death-defying, life-affirming journey. Through direct and evocative prose, Deborah Thompson skillfully leads the reader into a rare perspective on the world of Canadian and American Black life. Navigating the space between her father's ancestors who fled enslavement and her own life as one of the very few Black women working in the field of political science, Thompson breaks ground in both countries. Engagingly personal and crisply political, The Long Road Home illuminates how the experience of Blackness cannot be explained by drawing a line at the 49th parallel. The COVID-19 pandemic has been the most disruptive event in world history since the Second World War. More than 1 million people have died. The global economy has been shaken. Anti-science, populist extremism has become a potent force, and other issues like climate change have been overshadowed by the debate over public health measures. Dan Werb tells us how we got here through an authoritative scientific explanation of coronaviruses. The Invisible Siege is a scientific detective story that leaves the reader frightened that the villain is still on the loose and maybe in the house. A collection that summons the reader into moving explorations of care and kinship with the land and with one another. Making love with the land is a lyrical, personal journey to be savored. Refusing the demands of categorization, Whitehead's beautiful book is equal parts arresting, inviting, and challenging. He writes with fluid dexterity in the English language while acknowledging the complexity of creating and living in a language that is not always enough.
And now to present the final prize of the evening, the Hilary Weston Writers' Trust Prize for Nonfiction. Please welcome Roger Griffiths from the Hilary and Galen Weston Foundation.
Well, hello everybody, thank you. This is exciting. We're going to give away $60,000 to award one of the best nonfiction books written in Canada this year. You know, on behalf of Hilary Weston, I just want to say how much she enjoys supporting this charity, supporting the Writers' Trust. We've got some big new exciting things on the way with Charlie Foran and his team, and the possibility to celebrate, to acknowledge all of you, what you do in terms of taking the thoughts, the ideas, swirling around in each of our individual heads and transposing them into these marvelous books that give us a sense of this moment that we're living in, its depth, its texture, its complexity. All of that is really vital magic that the Writers' Trust is so instrumental for so many decades now in supporting in Canada. The Weston family and Hilary Weston herself just believe so deeply, so that the world of letters, Canadian letters, is just a vital national treasure that needs to be honored, it needs to be supported, it needs to be funded, and it is a privilege for their charity, for their foundation, to do that in association with the Writers' Trust and a variety of other groups across Canada. So let's dig in here. We've got 5 finalists. As you've seen, each of them have taken us on these deeply researched journeys, some having a journalistic flavor, others personal, others historic, others deeply, deeply scientific. All of this, again, I think is in service of understanding, that wonderful word, perspicacity, revealing the world to ourselves, a clearer vision of this moment that we're in. We all know how much hard work it takes to recognize excellence. You have to have great juries. And that's why foundations like the Weston Foundation, Jim Balsley and others consistently support the Writers' Trust, because we have confidence in just how serious it takes the craft of forming a jury together, bringing those people together, and engaging in a really substantive deliberation. So I think it's vital for all of us to acknowledge Mark, Cheryl, and Jessica for their incredible effort in sifting through and getting us to our finalists. So let's have a big round of applause. Okay, let's do the honor to these authors who spent all the hard time in their respective caves producing these books for us. So I'm going to read them out again. Let's save our applause to the end, but I want a really loud round of applause to acknowledge this incredible body of work that we are celebrating tonight. First, Jeff and Vicky, The Petroleum Papers, published by Greystone Books in partnership with the David Suzuki Institute. Thank you, Jeff. Tara McGowan Ross for Nothing Will Be Different, published by Dundurn Press. Deborah Thompson, The Long Road Home, published by Scribner Canada. Dan Werb, The Invisible Siege, published by Crown. Joshua Whitehead for Making Love with the Land, published by Knopf Canada. Again, let's bring the roof down for our 5 authors. I can't really mess this up because there's only one envelope left here. So it's my privilege on behalf of Hilary Weston and the Weston Foundation to reveal the winner of the 2022 Hilary Weston Writers' Trust Prize for Nonfiction. And here we go. It is Dan Webb will be presenting.
Just want to thank the jury, and I swear I thought they were a good jury before this moment, but my bias might be showing as well. And, you know, I wrote this book to put boundaries on the anxiety and the fear that I felt when this pandemic started, and the journey of writing this book and being able to connect with people who had spent decades of their lives preparing for this moment and basically in the shadows was one of the most life-affirming experiences that I've experienced myself. And it ended up being what I wanted it to be, which was like an optimistic counter-narrative about the things that went right. And we don't hear that a lot. We haven't heard much about what went right over the last few years when we think about the pandemic, but so much did, and I just feel really humbled and blessed that I was able to tell that story. And I also just want to acknowledge that one of the most beautiful parts of this whole thing, so thank you Writers Trust, was to connect me with all of the incredible nominees in this category and to send me their books and to give me space to read them, and they are all incredible books and I love them, and I am so just so happy to have met them all and to have discovered their beautiful books. So thanks so much. This has been amazing. Thank you.
So much great work celebrated, and so much great work go into, as I mentioned earlier, the Writers Trust all year long doing incredible work in this country to support writers, not just through these prizes. So big congratulations to everybody who put this evening together and the live stream and so on. Thanks to all of you for being here. I hope you'll gather afterwards and enjoy a little drink, a little reception after the event. I hope everybody will go home and pick up a whole bunch of these books for themselves and for the people they love in the holiday season approaching. Took care of all your holiday shopping right here. And I do want to invite the winners to please come onto the stage to have a photograph taken. And thanks to everyone for being here. Have a great night. Happy New Year.